Oh, hello.
You may be wondering, why the spooky music? Well, that's because we're covering a spooky topic. Hearts of Stone is my favorite DLC for any video game I've ever played, ever, ad infinitum. And I've played a few banging DLCs in my time, mind you. The Delicious Last Course, Mass Effect Citadel, and Blood and Wine from this very game spring to mind, but no other DLC has stuck with me or consistently tempted me to replay the entire base game all over again just to re-experience it, the way that Hearts of Stone has. There are many reasons why I think it works so well. So many, in fact, that I don't think one video will do them all justice. So let's just focus on one reason today. This is the big Chungus aspect, at least for me, of why Hearts of Stone is so great. 2 words. More Gwent.
You ever play Gwent?
An immortal demands you fulfill 3 wishes, and you've the gall to propose a round of Gwent.
Just kidding. Those 2 words are actually Gaunter O'Dimm. A villain can do a lot to elevate a story, and this villain takes the cake when it comes to video games.
I'm gonna lead you down the path that rocks.
This cute little clip fits Gaunter's role in making this DLC special for more reasons than you may realize, and we're about to get into why. There's something we seem to find fascinating as humans about the ultimate evil in fiction. By ultimate evil, I'm referring to the devil archetype. Let's take a look at the definition for this archetype. This character represents evil incarnate. He or she may offer worldly goods, fame, or knowledge to the protagonist in exchange for possession of the soul or integrity. Theory time. This is most likely half-baked, but hear me out. Writing a cartoonishly evil character in fiction can be a delicate line to toe, because you can absolutely have over-the-top villains that work. See Emperor Palpatine or Captain Barbossa. But for every good example, there's an opposite bad example, like Jared Leto's Joker, or basically any Marvel villain sans Thanos and Loki. If you get it wrong, they can come across as cliché, caricature, over-the-top, or even boring. Thanos is actually a good example of this phenomenon in recent film. What made him a good villain in Infinity War was his misguided motivation that, while flawed, was more complex than me kill world because me evil, but he became immediately less interesting in Endgame because his alternate universe self ended up wanting to destroy the Earth simply because he was mad.
What I'm about to do to your stubborn, annoying little planet, I'm gonna enjoy it.
I understand that Endgame Thanos assumedly has the same goals and same motivations as Infinity War Thanos, but between the films, he went from being a villain who was reluctant and regretful about his violence to one who relished in it.
Very, very much.
And villains like that are a dime a dozen in modern entertainment. But as soon as it becomes clear that the villain is intended to be a representation of the devil, the ultimate evil, literal or otherwise, that sentiment can change.
Then that changes everything.
We get a little drop in our stomachs. Maybe it's because of the mythologies and religions many of us grew up with, but the devil as a concept is pretty terrifying. A being, often hiding in plain sight, that is cunning beyond imagination, who understands things that we can't comprehend.
Just who would I be if the true nature of things remained hidden from me?
Whose only goal is to corrupt and destroy our souls. If the writing is solid, the simple nature of such a sinister character can transform it from something potentially boring to something bone-chilling. Examples? Sure thing. Let's take a look at the Judge from Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. We initially think that he's just another member like the rest of the bloodthirsty Glanton gang, but he soon reveals an ethereal nature and a near omniscience that is really off-putting. By the end of the novel, he plays the fiddle and dances in a hellish sequence as we read these final lines. He wafts his hat, and the lunar dome of his skull passes palely under the lamps, and he swings about and takes possession of one of the fiddles, and he pirouettes and makes a pass, 2 passes, dancing and fiddling all at once. His feet are light and nimble. He never sleeps. He says that he will never die. He dances in light and in shadow, and he is a great favorite. He never sleeps, the Judge. He is dancing, dancing. He says that he will never die. I was disturbed to my core the day I finished reading that book, and those lines stuck with me on and off throughout the day at work and afterwards. The Judge commits despicable acts throughout the story, seemingly for no other reason than because he wants to. But the mysticism surrounding who he really is, or what he really is is what makes him haunting, rather than just a cartoon. He influences the gang to perpetrate greater and greater evil throughout the novel, and understanding that he represents something more than just an evil man makes him a special villain. There are many other examples in popular film and television, from Al Pacino's John Milton in Devil's Advocate to him from the Powerpuff Girls. Seriously, this bright, hilarious little cartoon show didn't need to make such a unsettling character. The role that these characters play in their respective stories is eerily similar to that of Gaunter's in Hearts of Stone. Gaunter O'Dimm is the Witcher's devil. There's actually somewhat of an argument within the Witcher fanbase as to whether or not Gaunter is literally the devil. Some argue he's a powerful demon, but not necessarily a god or a fallen angel like Lucifer. Some argue that he's a particularly powerful and malevolent djinn, but again, not necessarily a god or a fallen angel like Lucifer. But my goal isn't to precisely define his origin within the Witcher universe. I'm not interested in what he technically is within this world,
Because I don't care.
but I do want to point out that I think it's clear who he is supposed to represent in our world. I'd like to show you some of the cues that Gaunter takes from various devil mythologies and stories to prove my point. Hopefully you'll see, as I do, that his inspirations are immutably linked to who I believe he is meant to represent. Evil incarnate, aka the devil. And hopefully you'll also agree with me that his presence elevates this DLC to the next level. The obvious place to start is with the story that inspired Hearts of Stone, the Polish legend of Pan Twardowski. I'm going to be reading from the legend summary in Wikipedia for brevity. Feel free to follow along. According to an old legend, Twardowski was a nobleman who lived in Krakow in the 16th century. He sold his soul to the devil in exchange for great knowledge and magical powers. However, Twardowski wanted to outwit the devil by including a special clause in the contract stating that the devil could only take Twardowski's soul to hell during his visit to Rome, a place the sorcerer never intended to go. With the devil's aid, Twardowski quickly rose to wealth and fame, eventually becoming a courtier of King Sigismund Augustus, who sought consolation in magic and astrology after the death of his beloved wife. He was said to have summoned the ghost of the late queen to comfort the grieving monarch using a magic mirror. After years of evading his fate, Twardowski was eventually tricked by the devil and caught not in the city, but at an inn called Rome. While being spirited away, Twardowski started to pray to the Virgin Mary, who made the devil drop his victim midway to hell. Twardowski fell on the moon, where he lives to this day. Let's compare this legend with what happens in Hearts of Stone. Olgierd makes a pact with Gaunter. Gaunter grants Olgierd's wishes like the devil in the story grants Pan's. In Olgierd's case, he has his family wealth restored, he is able to marry his love Iris, and he becomes immortal. When Gaunter approaches Olgierd for payment, Olgierd thinks he has outsmarted Gaunter with the various clauses he added into their pact, just like Pan. The first of these clauses states that before Gaunter can demand payment, he must
Grant you 3 requests by proxy.
Olgierd realizes that by forcing Gaunter to use a proxy, Gaunter will be limited in his ability to use his powers, since he cannot act directly. Olgierd also tries his best to wish for impossible things in another attempt to wiggle out of paying up. However, Geralt is no ordinary man and is able to accomplish the 3 tasks. After granting the wishes, the 3 meet together at midnight at a temple. At this point in the DLC, the curtain of mystery enshrouding Gaunter has begun to unravel, and we know him to be otherworldly powerful and sadistic. Olgierd and Geralt arrive at the temple first, then look on in astonishment as Gaunter descends from the sky, arms outstretched, as if to mimic the imagery of God descending from heaven. Olgierd, though perhaps perturbed, still believes that he has the upper hand, and then Gaunter finally admits in front of Geralt the payment he expects from Olgierd.
What do you want?
What do you mean, what? Your soul.
I remind you at this point of the twist in the Pan Twardowski tale. The devil could only claim Twardowski's soul once the two met in Rome.
You forget. The pact states you can take it only once you fulfill 3 wishes
And we stand together on the moon. Well, what do you know?
Gaunter tricks Olgierd, as does the devil in the legend. Gaunter is a clear parallel to Pan Twardowski's devil. Not convinced yet? Are the hairs on your arm still not standing up? Let's take a look at some other details. This is going to be a series of quick-fire, circumstantial pieces of evidence that's meant to underpin the idea that Gaunter O'Dimm has been heavily inspired by various devil stories throughout history. Near the beginning of the DLC, after we are liberated by Gaunter from the Ophiri ship, Geralt meets Gaunter at a crossroads at midnight. The trope of meeting the devil at a crossroads may have originated in Africa, but it was popularized by the blues musician Robert Johnson, who was rumored to have traded his soul in exchange for prodigious skill on the guitar.
Hot damn, son! I believe you did sell your soul to the devil!
His most famous song, Crossroads Blues, references this supposed experience. The pact between Olgierd and Gaunter was made in blood. How do I know they made the pact in blood? The game tells you.
Olgierd and O'Dimm, a meeting at a crossroads, a wish, pact signed in blood.
I also find it really fishy that he initially refuses to tell Geralt what the payment will be.
No. What Olgierd owes me is far more personal than shiny things that clink. As much as I regret it, I can say no more. I must respect his privacy.
He gives you Von Everec blood but does not tell you how he got it. He looks at you with a smile and tells you only what you need to hear to be lured into his snares. He has the Von Everec blood because they made a blood pact, but brushes off your inquiries about where it came from.
Where'd you get this?
Geralt, aren't you the curious one? Assume it to be Von Everec blood and get on with it.
This is another reason why I love that ending when he walks from the sky. All the pretenses are dropped. He doesn't care that you know. In fact, he likes that you know. He is in control. He is the most powerful being in the room. Gaunter brands Geralt with a mark after Geralt verbally agrees to enter into a pact. This is reminiscent of the famous Mark of the Beast, which is a sign of evil or heresy in the Christian mythology. In short, those bearing the Mark of the Beast are those upon whose souls Satan has laid claim. Likewise, Geralt is owned by Gaunter until he fulfills his terms of the pact. This one is a bit of a major reach, but I'm sure many of you know already that Gaunter O'Dimm's initials spell G-O-D, God, but his other aliases, Master Mirror and the Man of Glass, could imply that he is actually a dark reflection of God, God's inverse, if you will, or the devil. Not overly compelling, but an interesting theory, and I would like to think that CDPR wouldn't add something like that on a whim.
Certainly not on a whim.
If you approach the meeting spot at the crossroads during the day, you will hear children singing an eerie little song.
The local human children sing a kind of eerie little rhyme about him. Here, listen to this.
Smile fair as spring, as towards him he draws you. His tongue sharp and silvery as he implores you. Your wishes he grants as he swears to adore you. Gold, silver, jewels, he lays riches before you. Dues need be repaid, and he will come for you. All to reclaim, no smile to console you. He'll snare you in bonds, eyes glow in a fire, to gore and torment you till the stars expire.
There are two lines from the song that I think are really interesting. His tongue sharp and silvery as he implores you. You may have heard of the phrase silver-tongued to describe someone well-equipped to deliver flattery and talk their way into whatever they want. You have also likely heard a variant of the same phrase, silver-tongued devil.
You silver-tongued devil, you.
Do I think this lyric inclusion was an accident? Absolutely not. The second verse that struck me was, "Gold, silver, jewels, he lays riches before you." This reinforces Gaunter's role as a tempter. In the Bible, when Christ goes into the mountain to fast, the devil approaches him and tempts him in 3 ways, the third of which being the power and riches of all the kingdoms of the earth. And all of this leading into the finale of the spooky little tune. He'll snare you in bonds, eyes glowing afire, to gore and torment you till the stars expire. What is the devil's role, if not to tempt and ensnare you and drag you speedily down to hell? But maybe the scariest thing about Gaunter is that you would never look twice at him if you didn't know he was there. I doubt many of us remembered him from the beginning of the game's main story. I know that I certainly didn't the first time I played Hearts of Stone. You actually meet him in White Orchard while you're looking for Yennefer. From the jump, Gaunter has been manipulating Geralt into agreeing to eventually doing his bidding. He appears as a normal man, able to blend in when he doesn't want to be seen, able to charm and coerce when he needs to. He even helps when he can, but never does so without reason. In his heart, he harbors nothing but evil intentions. This video is already running longer than I intended, so we're going to wrap things up in this next section, but rest assured I could go on. And I encourage you all to play or replay Hearts of Stone to pick out more little details and Easter eggs about who Gaunter is. Also, if you've been enjoying this video, please drop it a like and consider subscribing, especially if you'd like to see me cover more Witcher content in the future. The last element of Gaunter's character that I wanted to cover is his propensity for extreme cruelty. Another traditional role that the devil takes on is that of a tormentor, and Gaunter 100% fits this bill. There are the short and sweet examples of him torturing the ghost of Olgierd's brother Vladimir, or stopping time to put a spoon through someone's eye, but let's briefly look at the psychological torture he inflicts on Iris, Olgierd, and the Professor. In a very Stephen King, Needful Things, Monkey's Paw way,
Twilight Zone, Ray Bradbury, Friday the 13th, the series, voodoo crap magic.
Gaunter delights in twisting the poor verbiage of people's wishes and turning them into curses. Olgierd learns this the hard way. He gets to marry Iris, and he and Iris become immortal, but in the process, his heart turns to stone. Over time, Olgierd is unable to empathize and care for others, including his own wife, who he sold his soul away to marry. His curse eventually devolves him more and more until he does something unforgivable, which leads to his separation from his beloved wife. Iris's own immortality demonstrates itself in a twisted way too. Iris is cursed to live forever in the painted world, where she exists only as a phantom, forced to relive her worst memories of a heartless Olgierd. As for Olgierd himself, he loses everything that he made the pact for in the first place, and if you choose to help him once the curse has been lifted, he can feel only grief.
I've a heart again, yet all it feels is grief, sadness, and defeat. My life is a ruin.
But what happens to the Professor is even worse, for the simple reason that the Professor is completely innocent. Olgierd approaches the Professor one day in an attempt to find out how to dissolve his pact. The Professor discovers a lot about Gaunter, and because of it, earns himself a visit from the Man of Glass himself. The Professor had gone blind by this point, but could see him as clear as day.
Said he was honoured I'd taken such an interest in him. He wished to thank me, and explained he'd taken a similar interest in me.
Gaunter then draws a runic circle around the Professor and explains that as long as he stays within its bounds, evil cannot touch him. He essentially dooms the Professor to living in a circle with a 10-foot diameter for the rest of his life.
Ever tried to leave it?
If you'd heard how he said it, you'd be as certain as I am what leaving would bring.
But that wasn't enough for Gaunter. Oh no. If you pick up the Professor's notebook after his unfortunate accident, you can read about the dreams that O'Dimm sent to him. They start off terrifying, as you would imagine, but eventually he begins to dream about a daughter he never had. He grows to love the girl, names her Amelie, and becomes excited to sleep every night so he can see her. Before you go saying, "Aw, gee shucks, what a nice gesture by Gaunter to give the man something to love, even if it's only in a dream," remember who we're talking about. Eventually, the dreams turn into nightmares and the girl falls ill, and the Professor witnesses her rotting away by some foul disease as she dies in his arms. Only a devil like Gaunter could cook up such heinous psychological tortures as these. Olgierd's curse, which loses him what he once loved.
Now at last I sense how much I've lost.
The Professor's mind, tattered and torn by haunting visions,
Yet I live in constant fear, born of what I've learned about him.
And poor Iris, cursed to live through her greatest fears over and over again until the end of time. Only a devil like Gaunter could relish such torture. Only a devil like Gaunter could send a chill down your spine with nothing but a smile. To this day, I've not met a scarier, more charming, more intriguing, more evil villain in a video game, and his mere presence makes this DLC a cut above the rest.